Champions! The Yamaha got approved, so I ordered the parts and here they are. So this is 3 new sensor boards, straight from Yamaha Australia. Only took like a day to get here. Oh, I hate those things. They end up everywhere. The trick is you gotta fish this stuff out and just leave them in the box. Ugh. I heard they're compostable, but I don't trust that. So that's what we've got, three new boards. I can piss off. Might hang on to that box. That's handy for shipping like rack mount units, studio gear around the place. Might hang on to it. So we'll get to removing the existing boards with the number 1 Phillips. Don't try and use the wrong side screwdriver, please. The bane of my existence if you do. It's got these ribbon cables here connecting the boards together. Got to reuse them, so you've got to carefully remove them. Can't do that until we remove the boards first. Got to pull this ribbon cable through as well. Actually, might try and disconnect that in situ. Actually, pull it through this way because it's got that the ferrite little tunnel thing there to help stop RF interference making its way from the keyboard, because it is unshielded, this area. It's like a big antenna. Two more screws. There we go, and they should just slide out. I've got those little keyholes there. Flip this over, and that's all the dropper diodes that give you the voltage steps that the microcontroller interprets, and then tells the computer, hey, play this note. So that's the other side of the board. That's all the dropper diodes. That's the ribbon connectors. Notice there's a step in the board there. They're different widths, so that cable has to go back in that configuration. See, that's a bit longer there than this one because the connectors are offset, so you've got to remember that. Don't stuff that up. Got a little bit of fiber tape there just holding the ribbon connector in place, so you've got to carefully remove that, and it looks pretty clean, so we'll probably reuse it. Another connector there. So these connectors here, the way you remove them is it's got a little retainer there, pulls out. Just pull them out with your fingernail. If you haven't got any fingernails, a small screwdriver, but be careful. Now it should come out reasonably easy. They're not zero force, but you don't want to slip too much or you might bend them. Here we go. Just be careful not to bend the. That's just tin wire, so be careful not to bend that. Do the same thing again with the other one. You can hear it sort of breaks its chemical bond there between the two metals. There's a little bit of a click. And it comes out easy after that. Set them aside. Now, we'll remove the fiber tape. Just carefully, don't mess it up because we want to reuse it. Now this connector is a little bit different. It's just like press fit. So you just pull that one out. There's no retainer on this one. again, just be careful, don't force it. If it doesn't want to come, reassess what you're doing and try again. Right, so I'm going to take this to my home workshop where I can let the shmoo fly shamelessly and blast her out with compressed air in the garage, because I don't want this stuff getting all over the walls of the shop, and it'll go flowing if you hit that with compressed air. And then we'll bring it back and we'll reassemble the whole shenanigans. Right, now this is the bit I always dread with this job. It's the most tedious part, it's taking all the keys apart and cleaning them. So you can sort of clean them on there, but you can't really get into the nooks and crannies, and you can see that there's stuff down there. You can get little brushes and that, but the stuff just ends up falling further inside the keyboard. And we've got them off anyway, so we may as well take them apart and give them a proper clean. So these ones have the little key markers on them for when you're learning, and I'm going to remove them. And then, so that's the first thing we've got to do to these ones, this particular keyboard. They're stuck really well actually, but the corners are getting all manky, and the letters are wearing off anyway, so we're gonna remove all of these. And then we've got a little setup here, little production line. So these are the dirty ones. These are the ones I've done, and I've got some shellite, which is pretty benign solvent. It's used for like Zippo lighters and stuff, but it's also used as a general cleaner because it's pretty polite to plastics, most plastics, and even nitrocellulose on American guitars. It's pretty kosher for that, and it's not super obnoxious smelling. It does evaporate rather quick though, so if you're not quick, you do have to re-wet re-wet. Yeah, I won't even try and say that. It's past beer o'clock on a Friday, Arvo. So this cleans it pretty well. Gets the crap off there, the sticky sticker crap. Then we'll generally just use a mild detergent on the rest of the keys. You could really probably just do it with mainly water, just to get the crap off down in between them. But I use a touch of the Nifty just to help me along. I don't know if that's available in the States or the UK, but I love it. I'd drink the stuff if I could. So, got most of that shmoo off. I'm using that word a lot, eh? It's word of the year, shmoo. Alright. So now we'll take them apart. So the reason that they make these in 3 pieces is for the manufacturing, a little bit hard to separate the first time. So if you tried to mould, obviously you got your 2 colours, right? But if you tried to mould that in 1 piece, it's not really possible. There's limitations to injection moulding, and one of them is how thin your walls can be. And if you were to try and make a mould, A, it would be really expensive, and B, it would wear out quick, and it would probably be super delicate, and it would probably crack eventually on the verticals there, because you've got a very thin piece of metal that's heating and cooling as you're injecting the plastic in there, the molten plastic. And it's ABS, this one, it actually says it there. So it's more logical to make them where the mould is a lot simpler and more chunky, and then just attach them together later, which is the way this company does it. Some other companies have individual keys, and they'll have like 3 different types of 4 different types of key, and you've got to get the right key in the right spot. But Yamaha make them in banks. It does speed up the process a little bit. I mean, if you're not cleaning them, you can just take them apart and leave them like that. And I just put them down in the order they come off, but it's not that hard to figure out where they went back, and it even says that in your manual. So anyway, enough shit talking, let's actually clean one. So I'll get them, put that one aside. They've got little rubber stoppers on the bottom. Be careful not to lose them. You can buy them separately, but we try not to. no point if you're just careful. One of them was loose. That was that in the first video. The key was really noisy when you tacked on it, and when it returned, it would go clunk, clunk, clunk. I found that rubber floating around. It was one of the things that was floating around loosely in the case, so that came off for some reason. It slipped back on fine, nothing was broken, it just came loose. Maybe it wasn't all the way on, or I don't know. Maybe someone got particularly enthusiastic playing the piano and it just came off. So I've got just a sponge, blah blah. Just fold her over and get it between the black ones. There's a lot of, looks like food and drink and stuff spilt on these ones. It's by no means the worst I've seen, but it's still, you got to give it a bit of attention to make sure you clean it proper. Most of the stuff just comes off with water, but every now and then I hit a little bit of, I don't know if it's a bit of chewing gum or something, gum or oil based. It needs a bit of shellite to get it to move. Let me just go back to the nifty. I only put like one squirt on there, and the rag's damp anyway, so it's sort of diluted. Right, so that one's done. Just set that aside. And the next white keys. This is where you want to get a good podcast. Something to keep the mind active while you're doing this brainless work. What sort of, you've still got to pay attention. It's one of those annoying jobs where it's tedious but still fiddly, so you've got to pay attention the whole time. But normally if I'm not doing a video and get hit with a copyright strike like I would now, I'd have a podcast on in the background, I'd have the amp hour, or I'd have the Infinite Monkey Cage, or possibly Dr. Carl. I like the science-based ones. Or Henry Rollins has his radio show every, Sunday night over there. So we don't get it till like Monday, Tuesday. Try to listen to that whenever I can. Let's pop that one there too. Wait till we've got all three ready. Got a hog bristle brush there. Gets into the nooks and crannies, as we call them in Australia. Oh, is that an international thing, or? So, because these flex both ways, you can see they've got like an elbow that allows them to flex that way, thin bit, and they can also flex that way. Which I guess is to allow for any cooling indifferences in the plastic that would otherwise possibly make them bow and not sit perfectly evenly spaced when they're installed. I don't know. I'm sure they got their reasons. Yamaha don't do anything unless there's a reason behind it. Now it's got a grease on the key guides there, so there's a bit of crap there. Gross. So they have them in. They have a bit of plastics grease in there and a little bit of plastics grease on the stopper there. So a little bit gets wiped off in the process. So I'll reapply that later. Right. So we'll put them back together. So they just sort of click in like that, and the black keys come in. You've got to bring them in at a sort of angle to get that elbow around it. Then they click in and we're back to our bank. And we move on to the next one and repeat the process until beer o'clock. So we gave the rubber contacts a bit of a bath in just a mild detergent, and gave them a scrub with a little soft bristle brush, and they came up like new. They feel like octopus tentacles Overcooked calamari. So they're all the same. I believe they're all the same. 30, 32. Got different numbers on them, but they look the same. So I'll check the service manual and figure out what's going on there. But they're all the same length anyway. And there's another little one there to add, because all three boards aren't the same size. So there's the 3 new boards laid out in their order, ready to install the ribbon cables again and reinstall these rubber contacts. So they've got little feet on the bottom, little sort of locators, pins. They go in those holes there. You can see around there, and they're hollow in the top. So if they were just solid rubber pins, they just sort of mush over as you push them in. So you get a tool, and I use, here it is. It's a standard run-of-the-mill telescopic magnet. I actually purchased this one when I was working on my motorcycle and dropped one of the valve spacers down inside the engine block. So I had to run down to the local auto spares place and get this to fish it back out of the crankcase. Years ago, probably 10, 12 years ago. But on the other side, it's got this handy little probe. Now, I don't know exactly what this was meant for in the first place, but it's perfect for this. So that's a blunt tip pin, just like a bit of wire. You could use a bit of wire and just make sure it's square on the end and not sharp, so it won't spike through. And basically you get the rubber boot, set it, sort of drops in. It's best to do this elevated. And you pop the pin in there and you do that 50 million times. Misfire, which is installed. Just check that it's sitting flat, no gaps, no creases. Yeah, now that we've just got to do that a million times, so it's another good job for chucking a good podcast on. So I've got the ribbon cables reconnected, just got to plop the board back in situ. Got to reconnect the ribbon cable, the shiny face down. It's got to approach from the rear because the ferrite bead thing on it won't make it through the hole. There we go. Check that everything's aligned. Yep. Line of little keyholes. Just gently push them upwards. Alright, now we're ready to put the screws back in. Oh, one other thing, I forgot this last time too. Just got to tuck the ribbon connector into that, the ribbon cable, sorry, into that little hole there. Likewise over here. Sweet as. Right, ready to reinstall those screws. Again, fun part. So all the rubber contacts are sitting in place. You just got to go through one by one and just gently push them down. Don't pierce the pin all the way through, but you'll get a feel for it. You just push down till it bottoms out, and then move on to the next one. There's little arrows on the rubber contacts too, just make sure they're pointing towards the back of the keyboard before you install them. Otherwise the key weighting probably won't work properly. Alright, so they're all installed again, the rubber contacts. So we'll just go and just check through them, make sure there's no high spots. Just check that we've got them all in there properly, because it's too late once you put it together and one of the keys is dead. Best to just check it carefully now. And we're all good. So now we're ready to start putting the keys back on. Just got to sort of start them from the bottom, just have a look at the hammers as you're doing it. And they should just slip on with no restriction. And just hold it down at the back, just see that it feels good, no clackiness, no getting stuck. And we're sweet. Yeah, it feels alright. Oop. Work our way up the board. Sweet. So in situations like this where putting the screws back on to fix all the keys in place, there's a million screws. It's a good idea to just put each one in their hole. Make sure that you got the right type of screw, the right amount, they're all in the right locations, you've got the correct holes, and you shouldn't have any screws left over, because if you start doing them up as you go, you get to the end, find you're one or two short, or you've got some left over and you've used screws meant for a different area of the keyboard. It's a much more of a pain in the ass to undo them again. So just a few little things like that can save you a lot of time and frustration. So we're doing screws up in a plastic housing. Again, you want to back it off until you can feel it fall off the thread. You know you're aligned with the thread. Hit a little clonk there. Just show you. Turn it backwards, clonk, and then go. These don't require much torque. You overdo them, you mess up the frame, and it's either not repairable or a massive pain in the ass. So be careful. So we've got rid of the keys while we give the frame a bit of a clean. Right, so we've got the case flipped over. That's the top section of the case. Gave it a clean. So we'll grab the keys upside down. There's a bit of a trick to it. Just get one end located. She should slide in. There we go. So just check all your holes are aligned, that you're in the right spot. The holes on the frame. Go grab that cable up. There we go. They should both come out. There. like so, and we'll go screwy again. So the screws used to secure the key bed to the top shell. Not every hole's used. You can see there's one populated there, empty, empty, one there, empty, empty, one there. So just have a look at the holes and you'll see, if you have a look closely with some good light, you'll see little indentations from where there used to be a screw head, and that's where you put the screws back in. Right, so we've given the bottom case a bit of a clean. Gonna thread those cables through, the ribbon cables. Make sure they don't cross over because they do have to go into their respective sockets on the DSP board. On the one with all the smarts, you got your power supply and your power amplifiers here. You got your power input and your audio interface there. Got your headphones output over there, and you got your speakers there and there. Duh. Put that on. We'll take up the excess cable so it doesn't get pinched. We'll plug them in, but before we fully complete the reassembly and put all the screws in, we'll give it a test, because right now is when if we haven't connected something or something's come out or whatever, we're not too committed to reinstalling it. We can stop there and figure out what's going on instead of having to remove 5,000 screws again. 5,000. Reuse those bits of filament tape that are holding the ribbon connectors down, if you can. It's a bit of a pain in the ass. So they sort of fold in place, do a 180 and then come out from there. And then we've got our metal plate, but we'll chuck that on once we've confirmed everything works. We'll flip that over, sort of holding it together while we do. And give it some power and see what happens. Alright, so it's powered up, it's drawing 4 watts, 5 watts. Give it some bowl. Alright. No dead keys, so we'll check the weighting. So the weighting is just how hard you hit the key changes the actual volume of the output. Just like a real piano, just like a real boy. So as you've guessed, I'm not a pianist, so I'm not going to torture you with trying to play Bohemian Rhapsody or anything like that. This is a technical channel, not a watch me wank playing musical instruments channel. So I think it was C sharps, all the C sharps were dead. So they're all good now. And yeah, we're hunky-dory, so we'll continue the reassembly and just do a final test. Always check these things after you've reassembled it before you ring the customer. Just get it in its complete, ready to go out the door state, and always give it a final test, because that's always when something goes wrong and you look like a complete cockhead to the customer. So yeah, I always make a point to check stuff just before I put it on the shelf ready for pickup. And ring the customer and say, come and bloody grab your bloody piano, mate. Don't forget the one solitary black screw for the bottom case, which goes where the headphone jack is. So if you ever passed out on the floor looking up at the bottom of the keyboard, you'll go, what a pretty Black screw, that is. Old screwy McScrew screw. Never thought I'd get sick of screwing. This is going to take a while. Check it out. No screws left over. Not like when you get your weird uncle to do it for free. Hey.